So the fourth industrial revolution is in essence the colliding of the three worlds. It's 79 trends that are emerging in 4 different phases. The centerpiece of the fourth industrial revolution is the human being. It's how we consume, it's how our economy works, it's how we sell to each other, it's how we interact. It will change every aspect of our life.
As the originator of the fourth industrial revolution, can you expand on the events that led you to coin the term?
So in 2008, I was asked together with Henning and Professor Scher, they're giants in Germany, to do the strategy for Germany. And if we have in mind, 2008 was the big recession. And Germany is the pumping heart in Europe. And so we gathered all the industry leaders. I worked very tightly with the Prime Minister Angela Merkel to actually define on what are the challenges there, right? And we discovered something quite unique, right? We discovered that normally in strategy, you have trends and you adapt to them 5 to 10 years and you have one at a time. That was the first time where 5 trends were merging together, right? So before 2008, your phone wasn't connected like this. Today, you have big data, you have social media, you have the internet, right? So what happened there, we call it the digital agenda. And we announced that the European Union accepted that that became the global theme you have today on digitalization. So this is actually the 3 worlds colliding together. So the digital world, the virtual world, and the physical world, right? But it was a little bit worse than what we thought, right? Because a half year later, we were sitting together and over a beer, and we realized it's not 5 trends, it's 79 trends that are colliding together, and they're driving a change that we have never seen in the shortest period of time. So we call that the Industry 4.0 in 2011. I joined the World Economic Forum, they hijacked the theme and all of this, right? But the Industry 4.0 has not changed since 2011. Just the population on the themes are not there because how people can digest them once in a while, right? So, for example, the 19 technology sets comes in 3 waves, right? When I announced it first in 2011, people freaked out because AI, they thought AI will take all their job, right? AI is the second wave. Today, they're all easy. Now they're totally freaking out about the bio revolution, right? So in reality, it comes in waves, right? The cyber physical systems for organizations and manufacturers and companies, supply chain management. The metaverse, which is a virtual reality. It's not only gamification, like Facebook is saying, there's far more research and development for pharmaceutical companies, patents, right? A far bigger universe, right? And then the miniverse, which is the bio revolution, right? And in essence, the Industry 4.0 is the core element of what we experience as human beings. We're the centerpiece of this. So, so the Industry 4.0 emerges in 4 very distinct waves, right? And these distinct waves are technology revolution moving forth until 2030, right? Then we have a whole wave on environment revolution. This is what we're going on now, right? But we have already passed it, but it's maturing, right? So our awareness of the environment and all of this, right? And then the economic revolution, and then we have the last version, the quantum revolution, that goes to 2050. So if people think they're in for a short ride, right? If we don't manage the turn by 2030, we're in for a hell of a ride.
Mm-hmm. So you mentioned about the metaverse. How will businesses use the metaverse in the future to connect and engage consumers?
So I mean, like if you're really specific, right? So the metaverse requires Web 3.0 to emerge, right? And Web 3.0 is in essence the reshaping of ownership and privacy, right? So that means you own your access, you own your data, and you earn money by doing that, right? But also the distribution of ownership, right? So for example, carbon trading in a forest that a region owns, they can do a DAO system, so a decentralized ownership solution for people around it, right? So what does it have to do with the metaverse, right? So metaverse was, when you hear what Facebook, they were a little bit desperate because they needed to use their consumers in a different way. So they used it into a gamification element. But this is the smallest use of the Facebook. I'm sorry, of metaverse, right? The metaverse is our way how we can experience multi-dimensions versus of community where we lock in who we want to lock. Now, Facebook says, okay, well, we just do the Facebook and then metaverse, a virtual reality. No, it's far more experience, right? It changes our experience, how we augment reality, how we experience reality, right? So this is how we interact with each other and how we be able to communicate on watching television together. It changes the way that we can share our work life. It changes the way that we can share intellectual capital, patterns, research, right? That's one element, but it also changes the way where we can interact with our financial system because it's a DeFi protocol that's running on it, right? So today, people often get surprised when I mention that, right? I built 6 solutions as a prototype only to make sure. I wanted to demonstrate to the banks, and I did it last week again to one of the major banks, right? I wanted to demonstrate them you can run an entire bank on a smart contract, right? You bring down the compliance, you change the ownership, right? But the big challenge for the banks is now you are putting your money on the bank, and the bank is the custodian of your money. By changing the smart contracts and a deep protocol, you become the custodian of your own money. So you're changing the whole aspect. So of course, banks are very resistant to it because they use your money to replicate money. So it's a long system, right? So the metaverse is one virtual reality that you can experience, right? But in reality, the metaverse it's not even in this infant stage. So there's far more to emerge in, right? When we look at the phone, how it evolved from 2008 to today, the change has been major, right? So, and that will happen as well, right? As virtual reality and augmented reality mature, our ability also to do this matures as well, right? So, for example, the pharma industry, I'm working very tightly with them on, because their challenge is they're using a lot of money on research and development. How can they distribute that, right? The ownership and most of this.
What are your top tips for businesses wanting to better identify upcoming trends?
So that's one of the key things. People think because I'm the digitalization and industry 4.0 originator, they think I'm a trend spotter. I'm not, right? My key expertise is strategy, right? So in strategy, you always look on trends in 2 elements, forces and drivers. And the forces is something you have to adapt to within a period of 1 or 2 years, or you go out of business. It's changing your cost model, your operating model, or your performance model, right? So these are the trends, normally best practices. That's 80% of the trends that people need to adapt to, right? That's why you need to buy low end. Then there's the 15% and the 5%. The 15% are the industry trends, right? They are merging, they're the early adapters, and they are called drivers. So you have to do something proactively to invest in them, and you have to be willing to fail before you get mature, but you have an advantage in it. You have a growth advantage and a service advantage and a value advantage for the clients, right? Then you have the leading practice. They're the guys who come and says, Henrik, we want to do the crazy stuff, right? We want to do, for example, smart contracts on ice hockey World Cup, and we want to do it gamification without a wallet that people can log on and they can play and they can earn. Holy smokes, right? That's the leading edge, but that's where they will also have a competitive advantage for many years to come, right? So I did that for Netflix. Today, Netflix lost that, right? because they had an advantage in the beginning and they grew too big and had an inability to innovate, right? So innovation and transformation is also a little bit secret in this, right? So the forces you to transform something that already exists, and the drivers forces you to innovate something, so you invest in a competence you don't have.
Why is it important for businesses to prioritize planet, people, and profit in that order in their corporate strategy?
So in reality, we see today an inflation rate that's increasing, right? But there's something far more dramatic underlying, right? COVID has put a restraint on supply chain, but it also put a restraint that nobody talks about, right? It has diluted the value of the money for the people. So they got no interest on the money. Now inflation rate is increasing. So the average person loses around 25 to 30% of his asset value, right? So that's a quite significant thing, right? On the people, planet, and profit, right? I did a study that was never published in the World Economic Forum, in terms of how many people should we be on the planet to be in full balance with the earth, right? So we don't see ourselves on top of the earth, but at the peace, and we can live in the earth. And the conclusion was 2.6 billion. We are far beyond that, right? So our challenge with food, energy, and many of these other things, water, our challenge resides within a core element. We are too many people. And we continue to believe the lie of growth and productivity. There's two fundamental lies that we need to take very good care of. Number one, globalization has been good in part of the evolution of humanity, but in order to cope, to be real environment friendly, net zero, we have to go down to be localized again. Local products, right? We don't need plastic around it. We need to have a footprint on what we consume and what we deliver, right? We can only accomplish this not by getting cheap apples from Romania, but getting the apples that are in UK for UK people, right? Because the transportation is lower, the footprint is lower, and the quality is also different. But people have not got accustomed to eating UK apples anymore. They eat apples from all over the world, right? So that's one element. We need to tackle our addiction to globalization, because we believe we can always grow, right? The other element, we need to put people in the centerpiece. The center of the industry 4.0 is people. People consume from each other. We consume our economy. We live from each other. We sell from each other. Our life consists of about that, right? So the industry 4.0 in itself is based on one simple principle. We are increasing our automation with digitalization, but we're not decreasing our workload, right? So in order to promote, we need to tax robots and automation to bring down the workload of people. It's something not really called for very much. So our pension system is broken, right? What does that mean? We need to move away from a pension system and move into something called universal pay. Why is universal pay the answer? Because we cut down our social system, we cut down our pension system, and we create for everybody a baseline, so every human has a fundamental life, and then you can go beyond that. So why is that important? Because our future depends on innovation, and we have decided we only want to have one sort of innovation, which is driven by corporate world. And that is not true. Our biggest scientific inventions are not driven by corporate world, but Einstein, Niels Bohr, many of these were not in the corporate world. There were guys sitting around. They had the time and they had the luxury to think. So today we have become one-sided in our innovation. So the two key elements, we need to break down our globalization and we need to put the person in the centerpiece, right? The profit is always an outcome when you have people around. So the fourth industrial revolution is in essence the colliding of the three worlds. It's 79 trends that are emerging in 4 different phases. The centerpiece of the fourth industrial revolution is the human being. It's how we consume, it's how our economy works, it's how we sell to each other, it's how we interact. It will change every aspect of our life faster than what happens. Now, the beautiful thing is that humans have the ability to adapt. So our ability to adapt depends on our ability to understand the forces and drivers and how we can adapt to them. And that's one of the main things why I'm driving these speeches, because it's my passion to help people to understand the trends and adapt to them.